particularly good news, especially for the French.
No, and we haven't been expecting good news, but in fact it was worse than expected. There was no growth at all in France in the first 6 months of this year. That's less than the 0.1% growth that had been forecast for the period from April to June. So nothing, zero growth in the first and second quarters. The government's been forced to back down on its growth forecast for this year too. They promised 1% growth. They now say it'll only be half that, 0.5%. Finance Minister Michel Sapin making that statement in Le Monde newspaper just as these new figures were published. Now, he also admitted that France will miss its budget deficit target for this year. He says it'll be more than 4% of GDP as opposed to the 3.8% target they'd agreed with the European Commission. That means that France could be in line for even bigger trouble, as it looks even less likely than before to meet that 3% budget deficit target set by the European Union. It's supposed to be met by the end of 2015. Now that looks less likely than ever.
Bad for the French, not great for the Germans either.
No, indeed. Figures for the same period, that April to June second quarter, showing the German economy contracted by 0.2%, worse than forecast. This comes after growth, though, in Germany of 0.7% in the first quarter. The figures say that a drop in trade and investment was responsible for this contraction in the second quarter. Now, while they're digesting that bad news in Paris and Berlin, things are looking up in Madrid. Unemployment is finally falling in Spain after 7 years of rises, and economic growth is expected to be on the way up too when Eurozone-wide figures are published later. Luke Brown has more.
More than just a ray of sunshine for the Spanish economy. The last quarter finally seeing a fall in unemployment after 7 years of increases. There are 280,000 fewer job seekers than a year ago. This industrial bakery is part of the success. It's hired 12 new workers over the past year. For many, it's the end of a long period of job insecurity.
I hope I'll be able to stay a long time in this company. I've been here a month and a half, and I like the work here.
Their hopes for a long-term contract boosted by the company's sales, up 14%, the first increase since 2008. And for the factory boss, hiring is facilitated by the economic strife as wages remain low, about €1,000 a month for newcomers.
The salaries in the company haven't risen in 3 years, but they haven't fallen. That's because of the economic crisis. Our sales haven't reached their pre-crisis levels.
The optimism is only slowly trickling down. Unemployment has only just fallen below 25% for the first time in 2 years, and domestic growth is still feeble, meaning the export market is key to Spain's hopes of recovery. 90% of the turnover for this swimming pool construction company comes from abroad.
Our orders have increased 30% over the past year. It's been a long time since we've seen that in Spain.
The impact of that turnaround already being felt here. This company hiring 6 additional employees since the start of the year and expects to recruit 4 more by December.
Let's check in now what's happening on the Asian markets, and it's a pretty mixed picture in trading today. The Nikkei in Japan has seeing the biggest gains you can see on the markets there, up 0.2%. Just the Kospi and Seoul dipping into the red. One of the fallers, though, in Hong Kong is the Chinese tech giant Tencent. That's despite posting pretty impressive results for the second quarter of this year. Profits up almost 60%.
Okay, we've got time for a quick look at some of the other business headlines, starting off with trouble in China for Audi.
According to reports in the Chinese media, the company's been fined $40 million for anti-competitive practices. It's part of an ongoing investigation into alleged price fixing that's reportedly implicated 1,000 firms in the auto industry. The Chinese authorities had already announced they would punish Audi for breaking the country's anti-monopoly laws. The technology firm Cisco is to cut up to 6,000 jobs, or 8% of its workforce. The announcement came after the company, which makes network equipment and software, reported a 1% fall in profit for the second quarter. This fresh round of cuts brings to 18,000 the number of jobs lost at Cisco in the past 3 years. And HSBC has given 15 of its top bankers special pay deals worth a total of almost €9 million. The so-called fixed pay allowance arrangements allow the bank to circumvent EU rules limiting bonuses to twice an employee's annual salary. The head of HSBC's investment bank, Samir Asaf, got the biggest payment of shares worth more than €1.8 million.
Finally, Stephen, a regular feature of online life at the moment, out-of-office email messages that exist for most of the month of August here in France, for example. The German company has got an alternative.
Yeah, they have, and that's just delete the emails altogether rather than sending out-of-office messages. This is an option being given to workers at the German carmaker Daimler. They're offering employees to be able to send a message to those who try to contact them saying that their email hasn't been received and they should just contact somebody else instead. The idea is that workers should be able to come back from their holidays with an empty inbox, the company says. It says they should allow them to have a clean desk when they come back, as it's an emotional relief for people who dread, like me, coming back from holidays and having hundreds of emails that possibly could be important or could just all be deleted at once.
I think it sounds like a great idea. Stephen Carroll, thank you very much for that roundup of the business news. Time now for web news, starting with tributes to Robin Williams.
Emotions are running high on social networks following the death of American actor and comedian